Hello, 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 hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are. I'm so grateful that you're here. Um, it is a very special day for us here at the Gravity Point Institute because today is our first live session, and I'm so grateful that you have joined us. Your time and energy is the only thing you have on this planet. So for you to spend it with us is really super special. So, this is a live gathering. We are going to meet on a regular basis live with lessons on how to live a happy, healthy, whole life. So, if you are new to our community, my name is Ashley Ann. I'm a trauma specialist, an educator, a metaphysician, and I'm the founder of the Gravity Point Institute, where we teach helpers and healers, leaders, light workers, activists, and advocates how to heal themselves so that they can heal the world. It is a very tumultuous time on this planet, which means that we need to be very intentional about how we show up for ourselves, how we show up for the world, and how we really serve this planet. So, on these gatherings, these Gravity Point gatherings, we're going to talk about various lessons that I've learned throughout my very long career helping others. So, just a little bit of background, I am trained as a mental health therapist, a communication specialist, a trauma specialist. I specialize in the mind body connection, so the brain and research on the brain. And I also have my PhD in counselor education, which means that I help helpers. That's what I do. I teach the helpers of this planet. And in particular, my passion is helping them create a sustainable, long term, healthy career so that they can continue to show up for others. If this resonates with you at all, please make sure to click on the link in the description so you can download the free guidebook that's going to give you an introduction to a very unique blend of neuroscience, yoga, quantum physics, and mysticism to help you understand your energetic core. When we work at the energetic core and intervene there, we naturally level up every single aspect of our lives. So, that is what we do at the Gravity Point Institute. And today we are going to talk about the role of pleasure in your health, in your mental health, in your relational health, in your mental health, in all the aspects of your health. Now, this might sound really counterintuitive because there are a lot of other topics that I could address. There's a lot of drama and trauma on this planet, and there are a lot of ways that people are experiencing pain. So it might feel a little odd for me to then lead this conversation talking about pleasure and feeling good. But what I have found in my research, in my work with myself, in my work with all my clients, is that prioritizing pleasure is actually a revolutionary act. It is sort of what breaks the pattern of pain on this planet. Because here is the thing, I really want you to hold on to this. You can only give to other people, you can only give to this planet that which you already have yourself. You can only give other people and this planet that which you have for yourself. That means that old saying of like you have to fill your cup before you fill other people up, that's actually a scientific fact. If you don't have certain qualities of energy within your own system, you cannot gift that to other people and this planet. So, prioritizing yourself, prioritizing feeling good is actually the very first step in making a meaningful impact on everyone and everything around you. So, if you're not enjoying yourself on this planet, you are not able to necessarily put yourself in a position to allow other folks to also have that pleasure. So, when it comes to pleasure, what are we talking about? We are at a very basic level talking about what you like and what feels good. And those two things are very different. So, what you like has everything to do with your relationships with you and objects and others around you. So, what do I mean? What you like is about admiration. It's about where your heart feels good, where your heart feels at home, where you feel a sense of belonging. So when you're thinking about what you like, it doesn't necessarily have to do with how you feel in your body, although that's part of it, and we'll get to it. So, what you like is about resonance. It's about being in certain spaces, being in social situations that you actually respect, admire, and adore. Like it lights up your heart. So, knowing what you like is a really important prerequisite to knowing what feels good. Because knowing what you like in relationship to the world around you is going to propel you to invest your energy there. When you invest your energy into things that you like, all kinds of crazy things happen in your body. So there are several feel good chemicals in our body that actually then translate to the physical feeling of pleasure. So you got the first part, which is relational, which is, hey, do I like this? Does this resonate with me? Do I admire this? Right? Like if I look at my plants, I admire plants. I like them so much. So what that does is it causes me to move towards plants. And that's the second part of pleasure. When you approach something, you give your body the physical capacity to create chemistry that lets you know that it feels good. So, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, vasopressin, those are feel good hormones that are going to start to create energy in your body that give you that approach energy. So, those chemicals are really important to turn on whenever you can. And you can only do that when you know what makes your heart feel good and let yourself know what feels right and what you like. So, once you know what you like, right, that's the first part of pleasure because you can only give the world what you have yourself. So, we're talking about pleasure in the context of showing up in the world and addressing all this pain. Really, it's the revolutionary act. So knowing what you like is really, really important. Knowing what lights your heart up, knowing where you feel like you belong. The second part of that is as you approach those things that you like, your brain will actually, well, your brain and your gut brain will create serotonin, dopamine, vasopressin, and oxytocin. They're going to fuel your energy to approach them even more. And that will then hit your receptors in your body and make you feel good. And this is where sensuality comes in. This you can't fake. This is the feeling of arousal. This is the feeling of energy. This is the feeling of enthusiasm. This is the feeling of delight. This is the yum factor in life. When you line those three things up, what you like, what you approach, and then what you can feel, you will actually support your mental, physical, and relational health. So it supports your mental health because when you're in that state, you have high vibing thoughts. You're going to feel proud of yourself. You're going to feel delighted. You're going to feel energized. You're going to feel interested. It's going to help your relational health because you will have more to give other people. You'll enjoy the people that you're around and you're going to exchange energy in a really beautiful way. And it also nurtures your physical health because when you have things like dopamine, oxytocin, vasopressin, and serotonin pumping through your blood, you will actually be in a state that's going to fight inflammation and put you more in a state of physical health. So, your mental and your relational and your physical health relies on your ability to know what you like, to approach that, and to receive that. That's the formula for pleasure. Now, what can get in the way? Because so many things stop us from pleasure. And you might even notice, like when I have this conversation about pleasure, it can be kind of triggering for folks. Like we can kind of feel a little uncomfortable, like, I don't know how I feel about that. And that is because there is so many things in our lives that are actively robbing us from the experience of pleasure. So let's talk about a few of those. Number one, screen time. And I know I'm saying this to you from a screen, right? But the thing is, a lot of us have learned that our screens are a part of ourselves. Like we pick up our phone first thing in the morning, we are watching our screen on our watch, looking for those texts. We're scrolling through images on social media. We're looking at news all day, every day. Like our screen time can actually interfere with our ability to know what we like, to approach it, and to actually feel good. And the reason for that is because a lot of us have learned through like scrolling through social media, for example, that those little scraps of dopamine, or those little scraps of oxytocin that we're getting when we see a really cute kitten, or we laugh at a puppy, or we see a meme that's really inspiring, we have literally rewired our brain to believe that those little scraps of dopamine are real pleasure, and they're not. They're just a chemical byproduct of the algorithm knowing what we're going to keep scrolling, right? Like that's what the algorithm does. It allows us to sort of have this little robot in the background curating our lives of what we're going to see and listen to. And that's not a bad thing. But the problem is that we haven't been educated alongside screen time to understand that that's actually something that can create addictive patterns, right? Like seeing a little puppy do something funny totally, gives me a hit of dopamine, and I giggle and I send it to people. And so then my brain thinks that that is what pleasure is because I'm getting dopamine. But meanwhile, more often than not, when I'm sitting there scrolling, I'm not moving my body. I'm not actually doing anything that's pleasurable. And that's where we miss out on the benefits of things like dopamine, serotonin, vasopressin, and oxytocin. These are relational chemicals. These are physical chemicals. And if we're not actually giving those chemicals to our body in a way that we're receiving, that screen time is just sort of like a fake artificial sweetener. On that note, let's talk about substances. So, another thing that can get in the way of our ability to experience pleasure, which is the antidote to pain on this planet, is that we get really used to having certain chemicals in our body that mess with our natural ability to experience pleasure. So, for example, something like alcohol dulls our pain. Like when we drink, we get to sort of turn off the prefrontal cortex. We stop experiencing discomfort, which then keeps us in positions that might be painful or uncomfortable, right? Like if you can numb your brain to the argument that you just had with your partner, or the fact that you're not having sex, or this really mean thing that somebody said to you, or the fact that, you really don't resonate in your family, if you can numb that just a little bit, it's going to prevent you from moving away. And that's really what pain is meant to do, right? If you touch a hot pan, you're supposed to pull your hand away. But if you numb your hand and you keep touching the hot plate, like with alcohol, you're not going to move it away. Other things that can kind of mess with our neurotransmitters and our chemistry are things like artificial sweeteners and sugar and things that are really inflammatory. So, substances can also interfere with our ability to experience pleasure by giving us like this false sense of soothing that actually keeps us in pain longer than we need to. So far, screen time and substances can get in the way of experiencing pleasure. A really big part that can get in the way of experiencing pleasure, and again, then interrupts our ability to stop the pain on this planet, is stress. Stress is a complicated experience because stress is meant to be resolved. Like we're supposed to be able to experience something and to feel it, to share it, and act upon it. Like stress should be a resolved cycle. But the thing is, when we're scrolling through our screens or we're encountering the stress of the world, a lot of that cannot be resolved. So, what does that mean? That means that in a lot of ways, cortisol keeps pumping through our blood. It can drain our adrenals and cause a lot of fatigue and keep us stuck in patterns of stress that we think are normal. In fact, think about your life. Are there any moments when you've been really calm and you're sort of like, well, when is the other shoe going to drop? It's really hard for a lot of us to slow down because we have adapted to this modern life of stress, and that can really interfere with our chemistry and interfere with our ability to experience pleasure. Two more things that can get in the way of pleasure: survivor's guilt. Now, I don't necessarily mean in the way that we think about survivor's guilt as if everybody died in a plane crash and you survived, but that concept applies to some of our experiences with pleasure as well. Because what can happen, and I know this happens to me all the time, is that when I experience something that's delightful, or if I lean into my privilege, or if I experience something pleasurable, it's almost like immediately I am reminded of all the precious people on this planet who don't have access to whatever that is, or who aren't experiencing whatever that is. And that pattern is something that we learn. It's something that we learn in our social interactions. It's a sort of a social contract that says you can't be in a better state than me, right? We learn that sometimes from our parents. We learn that from our friends. We learn that from our teachers. We learn that from folks who are stuck and who don't want you to go any higher than them. And what that survivor's guilt does is it pulls us back to their level so that we can stay connected. And that's the final thing that can interfere with your ability to experience pleasure and stop the pain on this planet. That is our social connections. So, in a lot of ways, folks who are struggling with their own sense of self-worth, or folks that are scared and worried all the time, they like it when people stay connected to them. They like it because it keeps them safe. It makes them feel safe. It makes them feel like their friends and their family are safe. So they've got this bubble of comfort. And whenever somebody goes outside of that, sometimes they have a reaction. So sometimes people will shut down in shame and withdraw, and you can kind of feel that, right? Sometimes people will bully you back into their circle and be like, you can't behave that way. I will not tolerate that, or I will abandon you. And then other times, sometimes people just feel lost and sad and abandoned when you kind of level up your life. And so those social reactions around us will make us feel like we are not allowed to experience pleasure. But I said this at the beginning and I'll say it again. You cannot give the world anything that you don't have. So if you want this world to feel good, if you want more people on this planet to enjoy their lives, if you want to address the deep-seated pain that is happening right now, it might seem counterintuitive, but you need to overcome these blocks to pleasure and really step into the practice of feeling good as much as you can all the time. So how do you do that, right? So enjoyment and pleasure and sensuality, they are the building blocks of a beautiful life. Knowing what you like and what you don't like is an integral skill. And here's the way to do it. There's just 2 steps. I'm not going to overcomplicate it. The first step to experiencing more pleasure and filling yourself up with enjoyment is recognizing your pain. That's it. Recognizing your pain and moving away from that which hurts. Does that mean you abandon everybody in your life and everything in your life? No, but it means that if there is a situation that feels like a hot plate and it's burning, you need to honor your discomfort. For those of us who are very sort of skilled, very capable, very high vibing, it's sometimes difficult to even recognize when we're uncomfortable because we have spent our entire lives tolerating things that are uncomfortable, tolerating things because we know that we're strong enough to be a little uncomfortable and other folks aren't, right? So we will learn to take on that pain. We will learn to be a little uncomfortable so that we don't have to deal with other people becoming violent or helpless or stuck or ashamed. We surround ourselves with folks who maybe need a little more help than we can give. And instead of saying, I can't help you, we accommodate their discomfort by simply becoming a little bit more tolerant of discomfort. And that can snowball because a little discomfort in an interaction or a little self-sacrifice here and there becomes a bigger pattern of self-sacrifice that just becomes normal. And you stop recognizing all the ways that you're uncomfortable. So number 1, start recognizing your pain and honoring it. It doesn't mean you have to solve the pain. It just means that when something hurts, pull away just a little bit. So this can be in relationships where somebody's mean to you, like create some space. You don't necessarily have to fight back, just create some space, pull back a little bit, gain some perspective. A silly example that keeps coming to mind is if that drab, frumpy sweater doesn't make you feel good, like stop wearing it. That's it. Just stop wearing it. So pull away from discomfort and pain. And what that's going to do is lead into the second step where you naturally, just by being away from discomfort and away from pain, you will naturally attract situations that you can experiment with. Do I like this? Do I not? And that is really the number 1 question that will lead you down the path of more pleasure. Do I like this? Do I not? Do I feel like I belong here? Does this feel like this belongs with me? Does this resonate with me? Is this giving me energy? We sort of have to become more like raise our standards for how we allow the world to treat us. And when we do that, when we raise the bar, we will then naturally learn what lights us up. And you cannot be a light in this world if you are dimmed by your own discomfort. You can only be a light in this world if you know what lights you up. It is your job to ignite your fire. It's your job to ignite the light that is going to shine into the rest of the world. And prioritizing your pleasure is the very first step. And I keep saying this, but I know it feels counterintuitive. Like, how can we be talking about pleasure when there's so much pain in the world? But pleasure is the antidote to pain. Pleasure is the way to push this planet toward a more equal, equitable, fair, just, joyous, pleasurable experience. So the call to action today is for you to stop and really examine what hurts in your life and find ways to pull away from that. Again, it doesn't mean you're abandoning your job or abandoning your family or abandoning any part of your life. It's just a moment of recognizing, hey, I think that this hurts. Hey, I think this doesn't work. And give yourself the space to then figure out what might. And that can be little small decisions, like recognizing that this kind of food always gives you acid. So stop eating it and then try something new. The more that you do that shift, you're going to pull your energy away from the pain in this planet and create more pleasure in it, because this energy on this planet belongs to all of us. And you have a little conduit that contributes. So my hope is that this little talk will motivate you to examine where you're contributing to the pain of the world by causing yourself pain or by allowing yourself to experience pain, and stop that cycle. The planetary problems are solved through personal action. So if you are tolerating pain in your life, that is contributing to the energy of tolerating pain on this planet. But if you stop tolerating pain and discomfort in ways that are really self-sacrificing and you lean into an exploration of pleasure for yourself, you automatically will contribute to the planetary evolution. Thank you so much for listening. I am so excited that you're here and that you've spent time with me. I see you. I'm so grateful for you. And I hope that you come back soon for the next lesson. If there is a particular topic that you want me to cover, please put it in the comment section. I would love to hear about what you're curious about, what you want to learn about, and I will plan to then speak to it during one of these sessions together. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, take care of you.